Now, we've gone through liquidity ratios, we've gone through profitability ratios, we've gone through activity ratios for Berry Computing. The last set of ratios we're going to do now, these are leverage ratios. And you'll recall that leverage ratios measure the extent to which the firm is financed by debt. All things being equal, you'd like less debt as opposed to more debt. Companies don't go bankrupt owing too little debt. They all go bankrupt owing too much debt. So again, we'd rather see less debt as opposed to more debt. Now there's two leverage ratios that they want us to look at here. One is called the times interest earned ratio. The times interest earned ratio. And this looks at the firm's ability to meet the cost of the debt. EBIT, the numerator of this equation now, this is operating profit. EBIT now is the earnings available for paying the interest on your debt. So if you owe $15,000 in interest and your EBIT is only $10,000, you couldn't pay the interest on your debt. When you can't pay the interest on your debt, they call you bankrupt. This is one of the technical definitions of bankruptcy. So again, this is an important ratio. Lots of people pay attention to this ratio. EBIT over interest. For Berry Computing, its EBIT is $70,000. The interest that it owes, $24,500. That gives Berry Computing a times interest earned ratio of 2.86. The industry average is 3. Now, I view that as a significant difference. I will conclude here that Berry Computing's ability to meet the interest on its debt is below that of the typical firm in the industry. Berry Computing could only pay the interest on its debt 2.86 times. The typical firm in the industry can pay the interest on its debt 3 times. The other leverage ratio they want us to look at now, this is debt to total capital. Now capital, when you see this word finance now, capital denotes something long-term in nature. And in this case now, this is the long-term debt and equity of the company. That's the total long-term financing of the company. And what this ratio says and asks, what percentage of the total does debt make up? And again, all things being equal, you'd rather that be a smaller number than a larger number. Now, the numerator of this equation is the debt of the company, the long-term debt. Notes payable out of the current liability section, plus long-term debt, that's the numerator. So $84,000 plus $256,500, that's the total long-term debt of the company. In the denominator, the total capital of the company, the long-term debt plus the equity. So $84,000 plus $256,500 plus the equity off the balance sheet, $361,000. What percentage of total capital does debt make up for Berry Computing? 48.5%. The typical firm in the industry, debt makes up only 47%. Now, I would probably view this as being the same number. So the extent to which Berry Computing is financed by debt, that its total capital is financed by debt, is in line with that of the typical firm in the industry.